What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Today, I want to talk to you about an ongoing subplot that raged in the X-Men comic books on and off again for about 15 years, starting in around 1994 or so, and then finally coming to a conclusion in about 2006. And that is the third Summers brother. I wanted to talk about that now because it's looking like in the aftermath of the Powers of X and House of X miniseries that are currently going on right now, that we are going to be seeing Vulcan come back to be part of one of the X-Men books, and he is the third Summers brother, but that was not always the case. This all started in, like I said, I think 1994 or so. It was after the Executioner Song miniseries. Sinister, Mr. Sinister, he came to visit Cyclops at one point to tell him about the Legacy virus, and while he was there, he casually, offhand, he mentioned something about Cyclops' brothers, and then Cyclops says, "Whoa, what are you talking about? I only have one brother." And Mr. Sinister, he's all like, "Ooh, or do you?" And so from that point on, people were speculating about who the third Summers brother was, or if there was more than one Summers brother, and there were a whole lot of different theories. There were even people who actually worked at Marvel Comics who were trying to figure out how they could take advantage of this and try and turn it into something big. There was one guy, Robert Weinberg, I believe was his name. He was working on Cable in the late 90s, and he had what, in my opinion, was a pretty stupid, convoluted plan to turn Apocalypse into the third Summers brother. His idea was that before Scott or Alex Summers were born, that Christopher Summers, that he was out gallivanting with another woman who was not his wife, Catherine, and he had a kid that he didn't know about, and then somehow the kid got taken to the distant past in ancient Egypt and abandoned there, and then he became in Savanur. That's kind of convoluted and just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Who would do this? Why would they do this? It wouldn't be King the Conqueror, because at that time period in ancient Egypt, King the Conqueror was a ruler named Rama-Tut, so it wouldn't make sense for him to take the person that Rama-Tut was opposed against and put him in ancient Egypt to oppose him at an earlier point in his life. So really, that whole plan was just kind of silly, and I'm really glad that they didn't go in that direction. There was a character to Fabian Nicieza, I don't know how to say his last name, that he introduced in X-Force, and he showed up a little bit in the X-Men comics outside of X-Force in the 90s. His name was Adam X the Extreme. There was a revelation in, I believe, a Captain Marvel comic that he was actually half Shi'ar, and his mother was a human being, and his father was someone in the Shi'ar Empire. And the hint, I guess, was that he was the daughter or the son of Catherine Summers and not Christopher Summers. And that would have been fine, except if you look in the actual scenes where Catherine Summers is killed by Emperor Dakin of the Shi'ar Empire, it doesn't really leave a whole lot of room for her to have had a kid before she was killed. She was pretty much murdered right after her and her husband were abducted from Earth. So that plan, while I guess they could have found a way to make it work, maybe say that he was taken from the genetic material of Catherine Summers or something like that, they could have done that. I'm pretty okay with them not doing that. And once Fabian Nicieza left the X-Men books, Adam X the Extreme was pretty much forgotten, and nobody really cares about him. He's just a joke now. I think the last time he showed up was over 10 years ago when Matt Fraction was writing the X-Men books. And then there have been other hints. Apparently, some people thought that maybe Gambit was going to be the third Summers brother. This one is particularly amusing to me because when I was a kid and I watched X-Men the Animated Series, I actually thought that Gambit and Cyclops were brothers because they looked a lot alike. They both had red eyes. I was dumb and I didn't think for a minute about how this one has a Cajun accent. I didn't even know what a Cajun was when I was a kid. All I thought was these two guys look a lot alike. They both have energy powers. Maybe they're brothers. But I'm kind of glad that they didn't go in that direction either, because what are the odds of Cyclops' other brother coming to the X-Men and then later finding out that he's related to two other guys who are already affiliated with the X-Men in some way? So I'm kind of glad that they didn't go in that direction, although when you look in the early Gambit stuff that Howard Mackie was kind of fleshing out his backstory, we find out that Gambit is not the biological son of, what's his name, Jean-Luc Lebeau. We find out that he was adopted, so I guess there's a possibility that he's someone's son that is not Jean-Luc Lebeau. I'm just glad that seemingly it's been put to rest that he is not the missing son of Christopher Summers. So finally, you get to Deadly Genesis, which was a miniseries. I said 2006. It might have been 2005. I don't remember. But Ed Brubaker, Trevor Hairsine, they did this miniseries that reveals that in 1975, when Professor Xavier recruited a team of mutants to rescue the original X-Men from Krakoa, the Living Island, this reveals that he actually recruited another team before he recruited Wolverine, Storm Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, etc. And then those all those mutants died except for a couple of them, and one of them was Gabriel Summers, who, long story short, he was aged at an accelerated rate. He was somehow involved with the Shi'ar, but he was not himself Shi'ar. He was the son of Christopher and Catherine Summers, and then he was, like I said, aged at an accelerated rate, and so he was about the same age as Havoc. And we find out that he is Cyclops and Havoc's younger brother, and then Ed Brubaker turns him into a pretty bloodthirsty villain over the course of his run on Uncanny X-Men, specifically in the storyline The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. And that is the character who we will be seeing a return of here pretty soon in the X-Men books later this year. But I wanted to talk a little bit, not just about the history of the third Summers brother and who some of the possible subjects were, but I wanted to talk about how I wish that this had happened as opposed to how it actually happened. Because with Gabriel Summers, his origin story is about as convoluted as what it would have been if it had been Apocalypse, in my opinion. I think it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. I don't think that Gabriel's origin is much more simple than what we could have gotten if Apocalypse was revealed to be the third Summers brother. For one thing, I don't think that the third Summers brother had to be an adult who's close to the same age as Cyclops and Havoc. I think when you have something like this, you introduce a mystery and then you let it simmer for a really long time, and then worst case scenario, the person who introduces the mystery, Fabian Nicieza, I believe, he leaves the X-Men books, and then you've got this mystery hanging in the air that someone else is going to have to come along and try and unravel it, or you're just going to have to leave it alone and nobody touches it. The problem is a lot of people want it to be really convoluted and messy, like the Apocalypse thing that involves time travel, and then you have to ask, who would do this? Why would they do this? Why does Apocalypse need to be the third Summers brother? Answer, he doesn't. But the answer, more often than not, the best way to go about it is to keep it simple, stupid. That's what my creative writing professor used to say in college. You don't have to go with some big convoluted thing to try and fit all the criteria that people felt like needed to be fit. There are a number of ways that you could have done this to keep it fairly simple. Number one, Robert Weinberg's idea of Apocalypse being the third Summers brother, you can go in that direction. You can say that Christopher Summers slept around with another woman, and then she had the third Summers brother, and so it's not Cyclops and Havoc's full-blooded brother. I think you could do that, and that would be fine. Don't do the time travel thing. Don't reveal that it's a villain that we've already seen. Just have someone else who's probably older than Cyclops and Havoc, and then say that he is the third Summers brother. Or you could do what they did with Gabriel, and you could say that he is the son of Catherine and Christopher Summers. I keep forgetting their names. I don't know why. You could say that after they get abducted by the Shi'ar, that somehow Catherine had a kid, possibly with a Shi'ar. The implications there are a little gross, so personally I wouldn't want to see them go in that direction. But you would have to do some pretty heavy retconning there, reveal that when she was murdered by Daken, almost immediately after they were abducted, that maybe that was a brain implant, that someone altered Christopher Summers' memory so that he remembered it happening that way, but maybe Catherine died years after they were abducted, and maybe she consensually slept with somebody who was of Shi'ar descent after she and Christopher were separated. Maybe she thought that Christopher was dead, and then she got with some other guy, and then she died, and then there's a third Summers brother out there who's half Shi'ar. Again, you're kind of getting into a little bit of a messy, convoluted origin story there. I think it could have been simpler. Honestly, I think having the third Summers brother be Christopher's son and not Catherine's, I think that's the way to go. I don't think it had to be someone who is a full-blooded brother, especially when looking at all of the flashbacks and backstory that we have of Cyclops getting pushed out of the plane and then what we see after that happens. All of that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for Christopher and Catherine to have had another kid. And if you say, well, they had a kid and somehow Cyclops and Havoc don't remember it and then they left him on Earth with her parents or something like that, that's again getting pretty convoluted and messy and a little bit stupid. So personally, with what I would have preferred that they had done with the third Summers brother is say that he is older than Cyclops or Havoc, Cyclops and Havoc, and that Christopher had a dalliance with some other woman before he met Catherine, or while he was married. You could say that he was a little bit of a scoundrel, and then that's where your third Summers brother comes from. Second place, my secondary theory that I don't like as much, you could say that Catherine had another kid, and then this is what I do like about that theory. You would have to do a little bit of retconning saying that Christopher misremembered how his wife was murdered, but the idea here is that the third Summers brother would be quite a bit younger than Alex and Cyclops. He would be a teenager, while these two are full-blown adults. Or he would be late teens, maybe very early 20s. If Cyclops and Havoc are in their late 20s, early 30s, I would say, honestly, Cyclops is probably 35 by now. I don't know if that's actually been confirmed, but I seem to recall back in Grant Morrison's new X-Men run that the White Queen said she was 28 at the time. So I don't know how much time has passed in universe since then, but let's just say that Cyclops is 35 and Havoc is 32, something like that. Then their younger brother would probably be about 10 years younger than them, and I wouldn't hate that because he would be young, he would be a fairly new mutant if you're going to make him a mutant, and honestly, you probably should. If you're going to go through this whole hassle of making a new third Summers brother, then you're going to want to turn him into a mutant. It'd be pretty silly if the third Summers brother was just an ordinary flat-scan human. But then he would have trouble controlling his abilities, and it'd be interesting seeing Cyclops and Havoc in leadership roles in the X-Men, and then this guy, he would be a student, probably about the same age as the New Mutants, and then he would be working with these characters like Cannonball, and, well, depending on when he'd be introduced, if he was introduced in the 90s, then he would have probably been about the same age as them, and he would have been probably working with X-Force, but if he was introduced around the same time that Gabriel Summers was in mid-2006, who knows, they would have just put him on another X-Men team. But that would have been, I think, a very interesting way of doing it. Have the third Summers brother be quite a bit younger than both of them, and then you could still play around with the Shi'ar heritage there, and you could do all sorts of fun stuff there. But honestly, I wasn't too thrilled with the way that they went with the third Summers brother revelation in Deadly Genesis, and from what I understand, that was editorially mandated. Ed Brubaker and Trevor Hairsine didn't want to do that story. They were told, you have to do the third Summers brother thing, which, why wait 10 years and then tell someone to finally do it? Why not do it in the 90s? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I wasn't too pleased with it, but it is what it is. To be honest, I was kind of happy not having Vulcan be part of the X-Men books since he was introduced. Pretty much after he took over the Shi'ar Empire, we did see him get dealt with. I want to say the event was called War of Kings or War of Realms. It wasn't War of Realms. I think it was War of Kings. We did see him get dealt with, but now seemingly he's coming back. I guess I'm going to have to wait and see how this plays out. Personally, he's not a character that I really care about, but maybe somebody, whoever's going to be using him, I can't even remember which one of the X-Men books it is that he's going to be showing up again, but maybe they'll find something interesting to do with him. We'll see. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the third Summers brother and everything that's happened with it, all the craziness, the stuff that almost happened, the stuff that people wanted to happen, and I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back later in the week with another video. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.